Separated by 60 years, Bonanza and Yellowstone reveal how TV's vision of the American West has evolved from idealism to realism. I'm Mike D, and this is Real DNA, uncovering how pop culture's past shapes its present. Bonanza's 431 episodes spanned 14 seasons from 1959 to 1973. After Gunsmoke, it is the longest-running television western. Filmed largely on soundstages with some location shoots, the series aired on NBC and was one of the first television series to be broadcast in color.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Being in color led the program to be expensive for its day, with episodes running between $100,000 to $150,000 each, which, in today's money, would be roughly $1 to $1.5 million. Typical of television programs of that era, each episode told a standalone story, where in each a problem would arise, it would be addressed, and everything would be wrapped up by the end of the show. During its 12-year run, Bonanza was number one in the Nielsen's ratings for 3 years, from 1964 to 1967. Its success having been bolstered by a move from Saturday to Sunday night and the introduction of Chevrolet as the show's sponsor. From there, Bonanza would be able to retain a place in the Nielsen's top 10 ratings until 1971. Yellowstone ran from 2018 to 2024 and had a total of 53 episodes over the course of its 5 seasons. Unlike the sound stages of Bonanza, Yellowstone was shot on location in Utah, Montana, and Texas. The Dutton's cabin, for instance, was located on an actual ranch called the Chief Joseph Ranch near Darby, Montana. Furthermore, the show made extensive use of drone shots to capture the natural landscape and beauty of these locations. These location shoots were costly, and between them and the salaries of the likes of Kevin Costner, the per-episode cost for each show was in the neighborhood of the $8 to $10 million mark. Story-wise, the episodes were serialized, giving plotlines time to accumulate, the conflicts to escalate, and actions to have long-term consequences. Initially, Yellowstone debuted on the Paramount Network. CBS then began to air the first 3 seasons in 2023 during an actors and writers strike to reach a wider audience. The entirety of the series now can be streamed on the Peacock app as well. The show is considered a breakout modern hit and one of the most watched cable shows in recent years, with episodes often topping 10 million viewers across platforms. For instance, the season 4 premiere drew over 14 million viewers across platforms, and critically speaking, the show overall has an average score of 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. Even though both shows followed the exploits of a family and their ranch, the tone of each couldn't be more different. Bonanza was geared towards a broad network television audience of the late 50s to the early 70s. Sure, it had its balance of moral lessons, along with its idealistic frontier optimism and the occasional melodrama thrown in. But no matter what, the Cartwrights were the good guys, and they could be counted on to do the right thing. Their family bond held them together, and no matter their differences, you knew that they would have each other's backs. Yellowstone, on the other hand, was geared more towards adults, and the characters were morally ambiguous, where, depending on their and your vantage point, they couldn't always be counted on to do the right thing. The world these characters lived in was violent and unforgiving, and so were they when they needed to be. Their relationships were complicated, and unlike the brothers on Bonanza, you couldn't count on the Dutton siblings to have one another's backs. The tone of each show was also present in how their settings were portrayed. Bonanza was set roughly between 1861 and 1867, during and shortly after the American Civil War, at a time coinciding with when the Nevada Territory became a U.S. state. But the show presented a romanticized and idealized Old West Nevada, whereas Yellowstone presented a contemporary Montana, a layered world with native reservations, wealthy land developers, corporate America, cowboys, and the result of the collision of all these forces. The ranch there is a fortress under siege rather than an idealized homestead, and the setting reflects a modern, cynical worldview, filled with corruption and existential dread about a vanishing identity. On Bonanza, Ben Cartwright embodied wisdom and morality, and each of his sons represented an archetype. Adam, the intellectual, Hoss, the gentle giant, and Little Joe, the youthful romantic. These roles reinforced a family unit ideal, and overall, the Cartwright sons are united, supportive, and moral. And when conflicts would arise amongst them, they are quickly resolved with compassion. On Yellowstone, the family patriarch John Dutton is stoic but ruthless, and his children that are featured on the show, Beth, Casey, and Jamie, represent fractured archetypes: a loyal but self-destructive daughter, a conflicted son who is often resistant to follow in his father's footsteps, and a resentful lawyer whose self-interest makes others often question his loyalty. These roles highlight dysfunction and generational trauma. Where the Cartwrights would always come together and work through any issues, the Duttons are riddled with betrayal, secrets, and trauma. On Bonanza, the Cartwrights would intervene to do the right thing, assist someone in need, and help to maintain peace and prosperity, both for the Ponderosa and for the sake of the community around them as a whole. They modeled how to lead a good life and work towards building a better world. Where on Yellowstone, John Dutton's goal was to maintain the ranch and defend his land from outsiders, no matter the cost. The greater moral good was never his goal, but rather it was the protection and survival of what was his. Despite their differences, though, both Ben Cartwright and John Dutton are widowers, raising their children to adults alone and finding themselves to be sole leaders of their families. Also, both men view their land, the Ponderosa and the Yellowstone, as being tied to their legacy, and seek to preserve it for future generations. They also each have conflicted sons, on Yellowstone Jamie and on Bonanza Adam, that struggle to find a place in the world that they have been brought up in, with both Adam and Jamie being intellectual and also more removed from ranch life, leading each of them to be torn between family loyalty and their personal paths. There's a tension for these characters between staying loyal to tradition and their family versus forging an independent identity. John Dutton was the self-proclaimed opposite of progress.
I am the opposite of progress.
Bonanza, however, emphasized it, and the frontier was a place of hope and justice. And although it wasn't afraid to address serious issues like racism, domestic violence, and anti-war sentiments, it was always optimistic at the core. Yellowstone emphasized legacy, power, and corruption. The frontier is long gone, and what's left is a bitter struggle for control. It's about survival and the costs of holding on. Take Bonanza's The Julia Boulette story, an episode where the Cartwrights defend a saloon owner's reputation after her murder. It showcased the series' courage to tackle prejudice and its faith in justice. Now jump to Yellowstone's Season 2 finale, Sins of the Father, a violent rescue, a blood-soaked counterstrike, and vengeance without mercy. One episode ends with a handshake, and the other ends with shallow graves. That's the difference in a nutshell. One mirrors the romanticized reality of 1960s era television and the optimism that came with it, and the other reflects the morally gray landscape of today's. So from the Cartwrights' idealized Ponderosa to the Duttons' blood-soaked Yellowstone, both shows prove that the Western isn't dead, it just keeps reinventing itself. The DNA is the same, land, family, and legacy, but the way it's told reflects the hopes and the fears of each generation. I'm Mike D, and this was Real DNA.